Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this week's virtual plant clinic. My name is Bill Lester. I'm with University of Florida IFAS Extension here in Hernando County, and joining me today is my regular weekly co-host, Lily Browning. Good morning, Lily. How are you?
I'm great, Bill. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. Beautiful day outside. A
It
little
is.
cloudy, but not cold at least. Thank goodness.
No, it's not. I was surprised when I let my coworkers out for their break. Um, I was surprised at the warm air that hit me. A few days ago it was really warm. Then we got a little bit cold, and now it's warm, and then it's going to get cold again, isn't it, by the weekend?
Yeah, that's what I heard. I think Friday night, Saturday morning is supposed to be pretty cold. So it's really up and down, but at least it's not as cold here as it is in other parts of the country.
No, no, not at all. We are the like the little Lone Rangers here. The only and I hesitate to say the only state that is not suffering from some pretty severe cold weather because our friends in Northwest Florida are also suffering.
Yes,
So,
they are. And I have a little graphic to share in a few minutes that kind of points that out.
but
And
those of us like what west of Tallahassee and south, we've got it made in the sun here.
yeah, and here in Central Florida, it can get warm, it can get really cold, it can come and go. It's not like living down in Miami where it ranges between hot and chilly. They never get
Chilly
really
being
cold down there.
subjective, yes. Chilly being subjective, I guess.
Yeah, I think down there, if it gets like below 50, people think that they're going to die.
Yeah,
So
yes.
that's okay. If it gets below 49, I think I'm going to die too.
I've heard you think that when it gets below 60, so.
Yeah, well, it depends on if it's windy or not. So good morning, Wendy. How are you? And Deborah Sue is on here also. And our friend, Facebook user, is here from Broward County. So I think
Wow.
we really do have multiple Facebook users
I
on
think
here.
it's something to do with the settings.
I think so. So for all of our Facebook users, good morning. And Diana says that, yeah, we are expecting, I saw on the news this morning, 80s today here.
Right,
So
right. And then tomorrow it's going to be, high 60s and lows in the 40s again, which is typical of this time of year.
yeah, I
So,
think the average is still 70. Daytime high average is 70.
mhm.
But
So,
average means that half the time you can be well above it and half the time well below it and never be at average. So
and we're going to get like 82 today. So, are you going to jump in your pool, Bill?
I don't know. I'm going to go out there and check the temperature on it. See how it's doing. It's been pretty chilly recently.
Since mine is not heated in any way except by the natural sun, I can guarantee you I will not be getting in my pool.
Yeah, it's going to take a little while for the and I think it's mostly how cold it gets overnight
Yeah.
because it can get nice and warm during the day, but if it gets cold overnight, that pool water is going straight down again.
Hmm. And we've been here too long. We're not Yankee enough to just jump in the pool.
No, we're not. And Mary Ann's here from Inverness and Citrus County, and we have people from Broward County, and Buddy is here from Tallahassee. It says it's 64 and wet up there, so
Yeah,
64 isn't bad.
yeah, buddy, don't take a drive west. Or you're
No,
gonna
you don't
run
want to
into
go that
the
way.
nastiness. So just keep coming east or south or stay where you are. So,
But here, let me go ahead and show something that kind of shows how important it is that when you're asking a question, if you have any questions, just go ahead and type them in and we'll do our best to answer them. It really, really helps if you tell us where you are.
mm-hmm.
Because here's a little graphic that I saw on Facebook yesterday, I think. And this shows, And I don't know exactly what day this was taken or what time of day or overnight, but it shows the diversity in temperatures. So just outside of Florida in beautiful Mobile, Alabama, it was 20 degrees, and this must have been an overnight low. And down in Key West, not that
70.
far away as the crow flies, but definitely well south of Mobile, it was 78.
Right.
And everywhere in between was a totally different temperature. So if you're
Yeah.
asking about when to start pruning, or should I plant a citrus tree or a banana or whatever, and you live in Mobile, our advice to you is going to be very, very different than if you're in Key West.
And it's a big state. It's
It
not a
is.
wide state. I can drive, to the Atlantic Ocean 2.5, 3 hours. But driving from, the bottom of Florida to the top of Florida, just think about if you take Florida with your finger and put it somewhere else on a map. I mean, where's it going to stretch from Georgia to Virginia, maybe? So, if you think of it that way, it's a lot of different climates. And
it's funny because you look at a map and it's like, oh, well, Orlando's not very far from Miami. It's only an inch or so. It's a long
6
drive.
hours. It's about 5 hours from here. So probably 6 hours. Well, if they have I-95, I guess. Yeah. And yeah, and especially those in the Northwest, in the Panhandle, they have a totally different kind of climate. I was just watching bite-size seminars. I think I was trying to remember that last week that the Sea Grant people put out. And I was watching that one about mangroves and manatees, and they see more of them up there than they used to, at least in, their lifetimes. Seeing more manatees doesn't necessarily ring any bells about climate change. It can, but also remember, we've done a lot to restore their population. So, of course, they're going to spread out and go places where people in their lifetime haven't seen them. So there's that. The mangroves are a different story, why they're up further north than they've ever been. Anyway, the gentleman presenting that, I believe he was, he's originally from that area, so he's very well familiar with it. And he was saying how people come there and they're like, we're not in Florida. We feel like we're in Alabama, just the whole different topography and how, just a whole different culture. He goes, if you want to know who we root for, as well as far as football or anything, we root for the Saints. It's just, even though the borders are drawn, we call this Florida, a lot of things are different. But they're all part of the same state, so we love them all. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Although up in the Panhandle, the soils are very different.
Yes.
Wildlife is different. Topography is different. The trees are different.
Time zone is different.
Sure, you get past a certain point, you got to, change your clocks.
Yeah.
And I know driving from here to New Orleans, you spend most of your time technically in Florida. Once you get out of Florida, you're in Mobile, you zip through Mississippi, and it's not too far to get to New Orleans.
Yep. We've both done that. I did it right after you did it because it sounded so fun. All of this was pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, of course. I think.
And Maureen's here from Central Florida, and Brenda is probably watching from work in Hernando County.
Diane has a question for you.
Yes, and this is it is that time of year again. That means spring is here, I think. So Diana asks, what can I do to get control over the tussock moth caterpillars that fall out of my oak tree? This will start soon in March and April, and that's true. It happens same time every year in the spring. They drop excrement, crawl up and build cocoons all over the eaves, and are so unsightly. And this is one of our standard spring issues and questions that when they're out in force, oh my gosh, people will literally line up at the door of the office, the phones will blow up, and everybody's calling about those caterpillars.
Yes, I don't have the issue out here in Northwest Hernando County, but I lived for 22 years in the city of Brooksville under those oak trees. And while they do, they present a problem. And one thing I have learned is don't bother to hose them off your house, because they will be like, "Wee, that was fun. Let me crawl back up so you can do that again for me." They do put those cocoons everywhere. The worst part, though, is, and I used to sound that you could hear was them falling out of the trees, until an entomologist that we both know and love told me that no, that's not the caterpillars themselves. Like Diana mentioned, that is their excrement that sounds like rain falling out of the tree.
Yeah. Let's see. The little 30-second primer, I guess, on tussock moth caterpillars. They are fuzzy little caterpillars that come out in the spring, and they feed primarily on oak trees. So if you have large oak trees, you will most likely have tussock moth caterpillars in them. They are fed upon by a number of other insects and birds, and they get different diseases. So their population from one year to the next goes up and down. It basically curves up, curves down. So we'll have 1 year where we have almost no phone calls and no issues about it. But every 5 or 10 years, we'll have a bumper crop year where everybody has huge numbers of them, when people are blowing our phones up and filling up my email inbox with questions about, what do I do to get rid of those caterpillars? The problem is they'll hatch and they'll feed up in your oak trees, and you'll never know they're up there. And they start off very, very small, like caterpillars do. They eat, they molt, they get bigger, they get bigger. When they get to their last instar, or near the end of their caterpillar career, when they're just about ready to make a cocoon and then come out as a moth eventually, they drop out of the trees and crawl somewhere, usually on the side. They really like sides of houses. They like your eaves. They like your siding. Out in the
or
woods.
anything that you have outside, your grill, a hoe, a fence.
Yeah, out in the woods, they'll just crawl somewhere and they make their cocoon. And when you notice them all fall, either crawling out of the tree or dropping out of the tree to make a cocoon, it's too late to control them then. There's really no point trying to spray anything, and there's really nothing that you can spray safely that's going to control them without just completely screwing up your environment and your ecosystem in your yard.
And you don't have the resources to get this high up in the tree where they are.
Exactly. In theory, if you were to scout your oak trees, which we don't recommend climbing oak trees when you're above, 10 years old, I guess. That's kind of when I quit doing it. You could spray the trees, but there's no practical way to spray an oak tree without making a huge mess and getting some kind of pesticide all over yourself.
And there's lots of good things happening in your oak tree, that you don't want to mess with. Zebra longwing caterpillars sleep in Spanish moss. Did you know that? I recently learned that.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so you don't want to endanger the beneficials that are out there trying to control these, which are a problem, but they're a problem for about 2 weeks?
Yeah, they're only a problem for a few weeks. So when you notice them, within about 2 weeks, they're going to be gone. They'll be history. The problem is, what they find is their little cocoons possibly on the side of your house. The best way to deal with them is just hose them off or use a pressure washer to blast them off. There really is no good control. There's nothing that's going to make you tussock moth caterpillar free.
My oldest daughter lives in Pennsylvania. She likes to watch these shows, and I bet this is bringing back a lot of memories for her.
And we have a question from Linda about wild columbine, Aquavelia canadensis. Are you familiar with Florida columbine?
Not really, no.
Neither am I, but I know somebody who is.
And she often goes by
this coming Tuesday.
And she often goes by Facebook user. So Miss Rita, if you're on and you would like to address this, otherwise next Tuesday she is giving a class that Bill is going to tell you about.
She is. So let me go ahead and toss this up here real quick. This coming Tuesday, we're going to have a free class on Zoom starting at 10 in the morning on wildlife habitat with native plants. And it's going to be taught by one of our master gardeners, Rita Grant, who is an expert on all different types of Florida native plants. And she is the person you want to direct that specific native plant question to, because I know that she knows the answer right off the top of her head.
Okay. Do you see Susan's question about a tiller?
Yes. So Susan is taking a poll, and we're going to have to do that sometime. I know that you can. Yeah. I think you can do polls on here. We'll have to play with that. So we're going to put all of you to work and make you answer poll questions. But Susan's wondering if it's a great idea to buy a little tiller like a still or steel, I think it's pronounced steel, today so I can grind up the ton of leaves piled up behind my house to amend my soil. I used to have a little, gosh, I can't remember the name of the brand, Grasshopper or Mantis. It was a Mantis tiller.
Something like one of those.
It was a little one. It wasn't one of the great big heavy ones that, you know, you kind of takes you for a ride around your backyard if you're not careful. It was just a little one, and it worked great for tilling up a vegetable garden. And if you have partially decayed leaves, grass clippings, something like that that you want to till into the soil, little tillers are great. I used to love mine. I need to maybe get another one. Thank you for reminding me. So if anybody has any experience with a little tiller, go ahead and throw it in the comments and we'll share it.
The idea is very good. You know, for your compost. So
Maria wants to know why is her key lime will not grow.
Need to know where you're from, Maria.
Yes, Maria, it kind of depends on where you live. If you live, let's say in Miami, citrus trees grow like weeds down there because they grow year round. And I've known people who would plant a lemon tree from seed, and in a couple years, they actually have lemons. Here in Central Florida, it's going to take 5 to 10 years before it grows to the point where you get lemons. Further north, it's going to take even longer. So your key lime tree. Pardon me?
If they don't freeze out.
Exactly. Above a certain point, depending on what kind of citrus it is, it's going to freeze. Key lime is very cold sensitive. So it's tough to grow even here in Central Florida. You know, when it gets to be 27 degrees, your key lime is going to be really unhappy. They do grow really well down in South Florida. You probably would want to fertilize a couple times during the growing season with a high quality citrus fertilizer, because that gives any citrus tree all the micronutrients it needs, and make sure it's getting evenly watered. So if it's dry, if you're in a dry period, you're going to have to water it some on your own. If it's raining every day or every other day, you don't have to worry about it. It's getting plenty of water. But citrus, any kind of fruit tree, will take a number of years for it to grow before it's old enough to flower and fruit.
Yeah, I have heard. I remember when you got some feedback from. I'm echoing, Bill. I remember master gardeners used to say that, you know, if you have like a 5-year, it should at least be 5 years old before you really let it go to fruit here in Central Florida. It can fruit earlier than that, but it's the tree needs to concentrate on being a healthy tree before it puts out fruit, just like a human. You know, you should be
exactly
a grown-up human before you produce children. So, you know, the same with the tree, so that the tree is good and healthy before it starts really, and then only let it do, you know, its first year, you know, maybe 4 or 5 or something like that, and kind of move up from there.
And Brenda found some information on that columbine.
Great.
So if you look up University of Florida columbine, you should be able to find that. And
Oh, that was Linda asking the columbine questions. Well, we will see if we can also send her the information that Brenda just gave to.
Okay.
Or
And
they're both
Susan
master
has
gardeners.
had,
They can talk to each other.
looks like Susan has had 2 mantis tillers and she's worn them out. I
Okay.
never wore mine out, but I never used it all that often. Boy, they're so much easier than either shovel or pitchfork. Better exercise with the shovel. I tell myself that, but mantis tillers are great.
Yeah. And it'll get it into those nice small pieces that works really well for the breaking down of the materials for you.
Mm-hmm. Because Susan even accidentally dropped some okra seeds in those composting leaves, and they're thriving. They will. I know a lot of people who have a compost pile, they'll have little volunteer plants pop up out of it, because if you throw a lot of vegetable scraps in, that's going to include tomato seeds and cucumber seeds and all kinds of other stuff, and the plants will germinate and come up.
That's why I always, when I talk about the Master Gardener Volunteer Nursery, I try to make clear they are Master Gardener volunteers, and it's their nursery. It's not a volunteer nursery. Just things popping up all over the place.
And here we have Facebook user uses their goat, llama, and horse poo. I am not too familiar with llama poo. All those things can be composted. They can be thrown in your soil, but you want to be very, very careful using that. You want to make sure, and if you look up online, there are rules for manure management in organic farming. You want to look that up to find how long it needs to actually sit in the soil before you start planting vegetables. You want to be very, very careful using any kind of manure and vegetables. You can do it, but you want to be careful to do it correctly so we don't have it.
There's pathogens, E. coli, all of that you need to be concerned with. So you want to compost it good amount of time. I have heard, and I'm sure that publication has more details, but I have heard, when it no longer smells like what it is, it could be fairly safe to use. But I would definitely, especially if you're using it for edible crops.
Yes, because different kinds of animal poo does contain salmonella, E. coli, a number of different potentially nasty things. So you want to be careful when dealing with it. Here's a point. Facebook user gets a lot of volunteer tomatoes that pop up in their compost pile. That's really, really common. And you can take those plants and either let them continue growing or dig them up and transplant them to your garden. They're perfectly safe. Oh, and apparently, just for everybody's information, llama poo is just the same as goat poo. So I guess that's the topic for today. And they have waited 2 years. So technically that should be fine. Like I said, you want to definitely read up, and University of Florida has a lot of really good information on how to handle animal manure. We even have a class that we did on composting where we had Laura Bennett, who's our multi-county livestock agent, talk about composting animal manure.
Yeah, specifically animal manure, because it is its own, has a lot of, I know it's been done since the beginning of time, but it has a lot of concerns. So
it does. So if you need links or more information on University of Florida publications with how to properly deal with animal manure and vegetable gardening, or if you'd like to find out where you can find that recorded video on the class that we gave on composting, just call Teresa. Teresa will figure it out.
You want to hear a story about composting with manure and growing up in Massaret Town, Bill?
Oh, no, you can go ahead and share that. I know that Massaret Town.
Yes.
Wasn't it the chicken capital of the world for a while?
It was the chicken capital of the world, yes.
Oh, my gosh, okay.
But I moved, got brought here, but with my mother, didn't have a choice. And So she loved a vegetable garden, and she found Florida, more challenging to do that in. But so picture 14-year-old girl, got that feedback again, riding in a Chevette with her mother, who has a 5-gallon bucket in the back of that Chevette and a shovel, and would slam on the brakes in the dirt roads in Massac town, screaming horse, fill in the word, when she saw it there on the road, and would scoop it up and bring it home. So that was part of my life in Massac town.
That was recycling before it was popular.
She always was. She was a child of the Depression, so she knew all about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, recycling, repurposing, reusing.
Mm-hmm.
I know that in the past I would always go out of my way to get a hold of bags of leaves, fallen tree leaves. You grind them up with your lawnmower, you throw them in your great big compost bin, and that stuff is gold.
Yep.
Okay, well, keeping on the topic of poop here, Susan asked, what about pigeon poop? Spring Hill is the sporting carrier pigeon capital of the U.S. I know a lot of people here do have that as a hobby. They do have pigeons, and they race them or release them and let them fly back home. I'm not really an expert on.
It is. It's and they take it's kind of a gambling situation where the challenge of, is my pigeon better than your pigeon? Tons of the farms are up here in the Royal Highlands. In fact, last week I was going to mention it when I was sitting out in my yard and we were talking. I think even the subject of birds got brought up. I was watching one of those humming pigeons in one of my oak trees. So yeah, they time when they release them and how long it takes, whatever journey they send them on, and how long it takes them to get back home.
Yeah, we have a master gardener that used to raise them. I'm not sure if he still does or not, but he would take them and he'd drive off somewhere and release them and see how quickly they fly home, basically.
Now, unless you are the humming pigeon owner, I don't know how you would get a hold of their, of their manure. So maybe she's asking, if you can get a hold of that, like from some of the owners, from their coops or things.
Well, it can be composted like chicken manure. The problem with any kind of bird poop is there is a very, very good chance it contains salmonella, because chicken manure does, wild birds, ducks, they have a problem, issues in commercial growing. You want to definitely keep birds out of your farm as best you can. I know that birds fly and they get around. If they're going to fly over your farm, they're going to fly over your farm. But you need to make every effort to keep the birds out, the animals out, the dogs and cats out, because bird poop, as a general rule, just assume it has salmonella in it. So you always want to be very, very careful handling that and dealing with it. So if you have chickens, wear gloves and wash really, really well after either handling the chickens and especially after handling their poop.
Yes, Brenda's mother was more genteel than my mother.
Horse apples.
Yes.
So Cheryl has a key lime tree in a pot. It's producing quite a bit right now. Should I wait until it's done to plant it in the yard, or can I do it now? Oh, wow, she lives in zone 10B in Plantation. So a key lime tree can grow really well and really fast and really, really large also. I knew of a key lime tree in Sanford, which is basically straight across the state from here in the greater Orlando area. And it was huge. It was a huge tree and it was really thick, and it would get key limes year round. So at any given time of the year, you could find blossoms and little key limes and mature key limes all on the tree pretty much year round. So Cheryl, you should be safe to put it in the ground right now. I would assume that down there in Plantation, you're not going to get any more freezes. You probably didn't get any freezes this past year. So you should be safe to plant it in the yard now. You want to put it in a spot where it's going to have room to grow, because like I said, they can get quite large. And use a high quality citrus fertilizer, just a very, very light fertilizing. You could do it as often as once a month if you go really light on the fertilizer from spring until fall. For a bit during the winter, citrus doesn't really go dormant. It goes quiescent, so it just kind of slows down and doesn't grow a whole lot. There's no point fertilizing anything when it's not growing, because it's not going to take the fertilizer up. And it's going to end up in the groundwater. That's a big problem all over Florida. So yeah, you should be able to put that in right now. And if you start to get tons and tons of key limes off of it, be sure to contact our office. I'm more than happy to give you my address, and you can mail some up to me, because I love key limes.
You know, you're not allowed to mail citrus, Bill. You know that.
Well, if I'm ever down in South Florida, maybe we can, work something out.
Speaking of not being allowed to mail it, is citrus greening still an issue, and for dooryard citrus and all that?
Yes, it is. Citrus greening is a bacterial disease that is spread all over the state of Florida. It affects every different kind of citrus, so there is no citrus that's immune. They have just recently developed some citrus or greening resistant varieties of citrus. They're just now hitting the marketplace, and they're kind of unusual because they can get greening, but it doesn't affect the tree. So the tree won't get sick. It'll keep flowering. It'll look good. It'll give you fruit. So Cheryl, if you live in a spot where you don't have any commercial citrus groves near you, you may be kind of sort of safe, but your tree may get citrus greening. And if it does, it's going to decline over a couple years. It's going to look terrible. It's going to stop producing. Lots and lots of University of Florida information about citrus greening, how to diagnose it, how to get an idea if your tree has it or not. So if you look that up online, you can find a lot of University of Florida information. And unfortunately, every citrus tree is susceptible to it. Some people can still grow citrus and their tree doesn't get the disease. Other people, you might get a new tree, and next year or the year after that, boom, it gets greening and it's going to decline and die. And there's no cure for it, nothing you can do to stop it.
And to bring the two subjects we are discussing together, there's been studies that have found that applying compost, around your citrus trees does help slow down somehow or another. I don't know the science behind it. You may. The effects of citrus greening, I should say. The fruit is at least juiceable.
Yes, if you follow a perfect fertilizer regimen for citrus, you can, if your tree does get infected with greening, you could stretch its lifespan a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. That was one of the first things that they found with dealing with citrus greening, because University of Florida has been doing research on it for, I guess, better part of 10 years at this point.
Yeah.
And because this is Florida and we have a huge commercial citrus industry here, University of Florida has been at the forefront of that. And like I said, the good news is that they have found some varieties, and it's because of the rootstock that they graft the citrus onto that is at least resistant to greening. And I'm hoping to have a class on that coming up soon. They're going to start a program where they teach me and our Master Gardener volunteers all about the new varieties of citrus. And then I'll have the information I need to be able to offer a class to everybody. And you can order them. I tried looking one up online, and I found a nursery in Lake Panasoffkee that will ship you one for $40 some odd, which isn't bad. I need to get one. I was going to get.
Yeah. You could be the experimental person in Hernando County.
Yeah, it's a variety of orange, and I think it's a Calamandan type orange. Okay. So it's very cold resistant. This one you could grow up into the panhandle, and it's greening resistant. So technically it can get the disease. If they test it, they'll find the disease is in the tree, but there's no symptoms and it keeps flowering, keeps giving you good looking fruit.
It's asymptomatic. We keep hearing that word lately. It's asymptomatic.
Yes. It has the disease, but it's not affecting it badly. And let's just circle right back around to poop once again here. I guess this is a special topic today. Susan says, chicken poop is high in potassium. Chicken manure is very, very high in nitrogen, and that's why it's hot. So if you have chickens and you clean the coops out, you're going to have a mixture of whatever kind of bedding you put down and the manure, and it's all mixed together. And that manure is very high in nitrogen. So when you put all of it together in a big compost pile, it's going to get very, very hot while it composts. And Annie has a question. Good morning, Annie. How are you? Annie's one of our regulars on here. What do you think about used coffee grounds on acidic-loving plants? I recently read it was wrong. Also, banana peels for potassium, soaked in water for a day or two. And then you water the plants with it. Coffee grounds are just fine. Coffee grounds are obviously organic. If you compost, throw your coffee grounds every single day along with the paper filter into your compost pile. It's going to compost just great. Coffee grounds don't really change the soil pH or make it more acidity unless you use huge amounts of coffee grounds for a very long period of time. So it's going to take a long time for those coffee grounds to actually start to move the pH. So you can use coffee grounds on basically any kind of plant.
And I would think the only way it's going to change the pH is in a pot. You know, it would take 1,000 years to change the pH in the ground here because of how fast things move through the ground here in Florida.
Exactly. The coffee grounds are going to break down and decompose pretty quickly here. Yeah, you're going to see, obvious coffee grounds. You're going to see the paper filter on the ground there for a little bit till it breaks down. But it's not wrong. Doesn't hurt anything.
My compost bin is almost entirely coffee. I don't drink any, but someone lives with me who drinks enough for 3 people. So
I go through quite a bit also. So it's a great way to recycle those coffee grounds, right?
And the filters work great to add the carbons.
Yeah.
To have that mix. And since we are on this subject a lot today, maybe at some point, if you put my email across, if you are interested in attending a compost workshop that is also a rain barrel workshop, we are having one next Thursday evening, are we? On the 25th, yes, 6 p.m. will be the compost workshop. 7 will be the rain barrel workshop. Here's the thing, though. You can participate and just listen in. So email me, let me know you want to just listen in, and I'll send you the Zoom link. If you are a Hernando County resident and you would like a compost bin and haven't gotten one before, the Solid Waste Division will give you one for free if you attend Bill's class. The rain barrels, again, you don't have to be from Hernando County, but it doesn't make sense to drive up here from Brevard, for a $50 rain barrel when I'm sure you can find one closer to home. So if you are in Hernando County and wish to participate, email me so I can send you all of the information and you can decide how you want to handle it. Or email me and say, hey, I'd like to just listen in, and I'll be glad to put you on that list. That'll be the 25th. At 6 is the compost. At 7 is the rain barrel. If you are in Hernando County and wondering how you're going to get a hold of those items, the following Saturday, you will show up at the Master Gardener Volunteer Nursery, and we will deliver the items to you. See, that walked right into that, didn't that?
Do you have them on Facebook also?
The event?
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then you will easily find it if you just go to www.hernandoextension.com.
But the event is just going to tell you to email me so I can send you all the information.
So yeah, that's another way to find Lily's email so that you can contact her and get everything you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
So Annie says that she also grinds up eggshells into a powder, which is great. That's a great addition to a compost pile or a compost bin also. She mixes it with the soil. Are there any other natural ways to fertilize the soil, not including poop? So I think Annie is trying to get off of that topic.
Annie, email me so I can send you the link if you want to listen in to Dr. Lester's compost class next Thursday evening. And that will answer that question.
Yeah, we
It'll take an hour to answer that question, but
Yes.
you'll learn a lot.
Yeah, we go through a list of all the different things that are fine to compost and things that you don't want to compost. Because believe it or not, we get unusual questions at the office sometimes about, can I compost this or that? And there's some things that you really don't want to be composting. So
No bodies.
Yeah. I think that's become popular out in Washington State and Oregon. I think about.
Well, I mean, yeah, natural burial is something totally different that I may be interested in one day. But no, don't throw any carcasses on your compost.
Yeah, I'm not really planning a class on that anytime soon. That's a topic that I'm not much of an expert on. But yes.
Yeah. I think you protest too much.
When you expire and pass away, you could be composted also, but we're not going to tell you how. So
there's a place.
That's what Facebook is for, right?
There's a section of the Brooksville Cemetery that is allowing that. Yep.
And going back to citrus, Cheryl says she has a red grapefruit, a Meyer lemon, and the key lime. So far, so good. That's great. I tell you what, down there in South Florida, citrus can grow great because it's growing all year long, and it's going to grow a lot more in 5 years than it'll grow here in Central Florida, because here for a couple months or almost half of the year, it just kind of sits there and doesn't do much of anything.
But don't bother to box any up and take it to the post office to mail to your family up north, because they won't let you. So don't even go through the effort. The only way to send citrus to anyone is to go through an approved packing facility, when you send their boxes of citrus up there.
Mm-hmm. And a Facebook user is going to try to buy some new citrus trees also, because they lost theirs a few years back. I know here in Hernando County, I've been here with Extension for 7 years, and we get far fewer citrus questions now than we did years ago.
Oh, yeah. Yes. I worked there before Bill did, and I worked there from 99 to 2011, and citrus questions were an everyday thing. Citrus and turf, but those were our main questions. Citrus questions were an everyday thing, and this greening really came in. It was like the last straw with all the other issues that citrus had, and now not everyone has a citrus tree in their backyard. In fact, most people don't. Back then, most people did.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and citrus is a tough crop because outside of greening, it gets, oh my gosh, there must be like 12 different fungal diseases. It gets citrus whitefly. It gets half a dozen different scales. It gets a lot of different pests. It gets the root weevils, but I haven't had to answer any of those questions because greening is such a huge problem that's everybody's main concern.
Mm-hmm. But it's such a huge problem. I know some of you in South Florida, you may have had your trees literally taken out or told you have to get rid of them because of fruit flies and all this. Greening is actually such a huge problem that they're not going to bother because they they know they're not going to eradicate it. Mm-hmm. So as far as greening goes, you don't have to worry about someone coming and ripping your orange tree out. Doesn't mean there won't be other issues in the future. So.
Greening is endemic across the entire state of Florida. There really is no program where they're tracking it because it's all over, and they're not telling anybody to remove the trees or removing your trees for you because it's all over the state. So Annie is a little bit like you. Her husband drinks loads of coffee, and she's been composting the cold brew coffee, which is really good. My wife makes that sometimes. Cold brew coffee's good. And
no, my husband only believes in black and hot. That's the only kind of coffee that exists in his world.
And I remember all the questions about your papaya trees, and they've recovered. All 4 are female. Congratulations. Sometimes people will get all male plants, and then you have beautiful papayas but no fruit. But if they're all female, you should get a lot of fruit, and it looks like they're bearing. Once again, if you contact the office and get our mailing address, I do accept free tropical fruits for research purposes to make sure high enough quality. And yeah, feel free to contact Lily and get the Zoom link and listen in to the compost workshop.
Yep, show my email again, if you don't mind.
Sure.
My very long email that Bill doesn't.
That's long and complicated. That's a lot to write down.
It's not for you. All you do is put an L and it pops up. So it's not hard for you.
And if you need to contact me, my nice, short, easy to remember email is wlester@ufl.edu. Or if you're interested in either participating in a rain barrel class here in Hernando County or a compost bin class, or if you're in another county and you just want to listen in and get the information, it's totally free. We'll let you in.
It's free to just listen in. Yes. Mm-hmm. It's free to just listen in. There is a cost associated with the rain barrels that you reimburse Hernando County Utilities for if you are interested in having a rain barrel in your possession. If you live here and you are a customer of Hernando County Utilities, you get your water from us, it will cost you $50, to get the barrel, but you'll get a $25 credit on your water bill. So, that's a really good deal. You can't build a rain barrel for $25. So
no, you can't. Although you can build your own homemade rain barrels. Gosh, if you look on YouTube, there's a million different videos with directions how to do it. Composting is really very easy. For our composting program, if you're a Hernando County resident, we'll give you a free composting bin. But if you live out in the country, if you want to make a lot of compost, some kind of compost bin is not very difficult to build. I've made them as simple as chicken wire in a circle with 4 stakes to hold it upright in the ground. And that's really technically all you need to start composting those materials.
My mother literally, she just had a pile.
Sure.
I don't know how we didn't get critters in it, but.
Yeah, an enclosed bin is nice because it keeps the animals out. It minimizes fruit flies and other little insects. Doesn't completely stop them because they're pretty small. They're going to get in.
And it doesn't upset your neighbors.
Yeah, it looks more attractive. I like to share that years ago I had one of the 3-bin composting bins made out of pallets, and it worked really, really well. And boy, I used to keep it full too. I used to get leaves and grass clippings and all kinds of stuff to compost, and made a ton of compost. Worked great. Boy, it was ugly. And my wife would look out the back window and she's like, "That thing is ugly. Get rid of that." Honey, I need it for making compost. Why do you think we have stuff growing in the vegetable garden? It's because I make the compost, lots of it, and work it in. And my soil, after a couple of years of my vegetable garden from doing that, was just beautiful, beautiful black soil. And Diana has a raccoon problem. So Lily, didn't you know somebody else that had a raccoon problem with their compost bin?
Yes. In our years of giving compost classes, we have had one person who had an issue with raccoons who may or may not, have something in common with me, like parents. But even with our compost bins that we have, which is, they look like R2D2, and they have a door at the bottom. She actually had to put cement blocks and things on that door so that she was fighting the raccoons because they're pretty smart. But and she eventually won, and that's only been one, one issue that we have heard of.
Yeah, so with these enclosed bins, we don't hear about too many problems with small animals or raccoons or possums or anything else that might try to eat the contents in the middle of the night, but it can happen. Especially the raccoons, they're pretty determined and pretty enterprising. So here is a good question from Susan. Is star fruit hard to grow? Let me think how to answer that. That's a good question. Star fruit is not hard to grow. It's native to, I think, Brazil, but not the really, really tropical part of Brazil. They grow it commercially in South Florida, all the way as far north as Fort Myers area, Pine Island, right off of Fort Myers, I think. I visited it was a pretty amazing enclosed screen house. Picture a couple acre screen house.
Wow.
And they're growing star fruit trees in it. And they were 10-foot tall trees. So it's warm enough that far north to grow it commercially. You can grow them in your own backyard. They are semi-tropical, so they're frost sensitive, freeze sensitive. You have to keep them warm in the winter. If it gets below freezing, you're going to have to cover them, keep them warm, put them in a greenhouse, grow them in a huge container and drag them in your garage or screen porch or something. So you can't let them freeze. They can be very productive and they can grow very easily. A trick that I learned about star fruit is it grows into an attractive large shrub, small tree, and has lots and lots of branches and gets fairly thick and dense with thin branches, with smaller branches that come off of them and a lot of leaves. If you take the branch and bend it until you hear the bark on it just barely start to crack and leave it alone, in 2 weeks, that branch will flower. So by damaging that little branch, it stimulates the rest of the branch. Oh no, we've been damaged. We have to flower and make fruit now, and it will flower. So growers will go along, you don't snap it, but kind of bend, and do that to the branches to stimulate flowering and fruiting. And
tree abuse.
I need to get one. I need to give star fruit a try here.
Now I am hungry for star fruit.
So am I. and like I said, for all of you who live down in South Florida, it's fairly easy to grow. Get a star fruit. It doesn't suffer from citrus greening or too many other. I really don't know of the disease and insect problems that it may or may not have. Not much that I know of. So yeah, it should be a definite winner down there in South Florida. So if anybody has any final parting questions here, let me make mention of, once again, our website, hernandoextension.com. Like I mentioned earlier, this coming Tuesday, we have a class coming up on creating a wildlife habitat in your yard with native plants, being taught by Rita Grant. That's at 10 o'clock in the morning, and advanced registration is required. So if you go to hernandoextension.com and click on that link, you can register for it, and Zoom will send you the link that you're going to click on next Tuesday at 10 and watch. We have probably,
I got to make sure I did that.
We have probably over 100 people register for it now.
Oh,
We can fit 300, so the room's hopefully not going to, fill up and be overflowed. But I mean, that's pretty good so far. Really good topic.
and the next day you and I have a class.
Yes, we do.
Yes, and there isn't any registration for my Wednesday classes at 10. Just if you go to hernandoextension.com, you'll see the link to my classes as well, and to my Facebook page, I think, where you can get the Zoom link. You just hop on and watch. And Wednesday at 10, we are going to have bugs that bite, sting, and taste you. So we're going to let Karen, our mosquito control lady, she's usually at all of my classes and talks for like 2 or 3 minutes, but we're going to give her a good 20 minutes to talk about mosquitoes so you can learn about them. Bill's going to cover stinging caterpillars, assassin bugs. That sounds scary. Anything,
Fun topic.
Other things that you might come across in your garden that you should be wary of. And I'm going to talk about bees. This is my little bee I got from the IFAS bookstore, and wasps. So I think that'll be a fun. I need a stuffed. Well, how come no one ever makes stuffed wasps? We need to.
If they don't, they should.
Yeah, they get a bad rap, and I'm going to talk about how extremely important wasps are to our survival.
Mm-hmm.
So join us then.
That's always a fun topic.
Yes.
And on next Wednesday at noon, we have a free class with registration required also. Next Wednesday and Thursday, we're having classes on So You Have 5 Acres. Because we get a lot of calls from people and they say, I just moved here and I have 2 acres or 5 acres or 10 acres and I want to start a farm, I want to start a nursery, I want to have livestock, I want to start a pasture. Next Wednesday, we're going to have a class with Max Smith. He's our multi-county small farms agent, and he's going to talk about all the different things that you need to consider if you're kind of sort of kicking around the idea of creating your own little farm on your property because you have 5 acres and making some extra money at it. And then the next day, Thursday, we're going to have part 2 of So You Have 5 Acres with Laura Bennett, who's going to be talking about pasture management. So if you want to get any kind of livestock, horses, cattle, goats, whatever else is going to eat pasture grass, she'll tell you what you need to keep in mind as far as creating, running, and managing a proper pasture to raise those animals successfully on if you want to start doing it on the side. So those are topics that I am definitely not an expert on, but we'll have the experts here to tell you how to do it right.
And I have noticed since spring is in the air, I guess, even more county extension offices are offering classes galore. I might teach 1 class a week and do this and a few other things, but while I'm working, doing my other work that I do, I can be having a whole lot of different subjects being taught to me so that, we can bring everybody I listen to. I learned something else from. So, and there's just look at all the different on Facebook, the different county extension counties, even look at your own and see what they have to offer. Because knowledge never hurts. There we are. There's my Facebook page.
Exactly. But you can follow us on Facebook. The short name for our Facebook page is Hernando EXT. That's short for Hernando Extension. So be sure to go on there and like us and follow us. Always have lots of good information. Whenever we schedule a class, part of that is making a Facebook event and plunking it up on there so everybody knows about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's about it for today. Facebook user, you are very, very welcome.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
And thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in and bringing us your wide variety of questions. I like that.
Yeah,
Keeps me on my toes.
it was kind of a poopy class today.
Yeah, it was. I really hadn't planned on covering animal poo quite so thoroughly, but
You
hey,
never
it's
know.
good. It's an important topic.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Well, everybody, please be sure to tune in again next week. We'll be here again next Thursday at 10 a.m. And go ahead and start getting all your questions together. And don't forget, Thursday, April 1st, be sure to tune in because that is going to be our 1-year anniversary show. And we're going to have a whole bunch of special guests here then. So that will definitely be a fun day. And yeah, Brenda said that today was basically Manure 101. So we're covering all the important things.
It happens.
Exactly. Okay. Well, thanks again, everybody. And we'll see you again next Thursday. So have a great week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.